Why does small town America get left behind after natural disaster? I probably could have noticed this for years, but being somebody who has been wrapped up in Hurricane Helene relief in Western North Carolina since September 27th, 2024, I see it entirely differently now. And maybe more of us would have spoken up if we had gotten down to the heart of the relief process sooner, but we let government agencies act like they were doing something, and we let a lot of the large relief conglomerates like the Red Cross or Samaritan's Purse carry the heavy load and didn't really see the depths of the corruption, because the corruption is more than the grifting that comes off the top to this friend of that county official and this donor to the governor. That all happens all over the place, and sadly we're all jaded to it. But I'm looking at the attitudes around the small town areas, and it's very disheartening to see what is going on, because the disaster, when the floods left behind a lot of things we hadn't seen for years. I mean, you can look at what's happening in Lake Lure, North Carolina, where the water line is down 30 feet as they figure out how to bring the lake back. And they're finding things like old horse and buggy contraptions from 100 years ago that haven't been seen since then. And it's fascinating to look at. But the question then becomes, how did it get in there, and what's the story, and how do we rebuild Lake Lure in a way that is honest to North Carolina? And then you look at Yancey County, population 18,000. You look at Mitchell County, where you've got, of course, the quartz, and you've got so many natural gemstones there that it's known for that. And then you've got Avery County, which is gorgeous and also very rural, the highest county seat on the eastern seaboard. And now you're figuring out, why are those counties treated so differently than Buncombe County, where Asheville is, or parts of Watauga County, where Boone is. Now, if you want to know the difference, look at Asheville and Boone. The resources came there very quickly. Now, why? Well, part of it's because it's easier. When you have a city, it is absolutely easier to fix it first because there's a bigger infrastructure set up. You've got wider roads. There's an ability for trucks and trailers to get in and out. I get it. And also, when you have your first rush of resources, well, you can serve the greatest number of people the most quickly in an urban environment. I get it. Although it's kind of hilarious to call Boone urban, but as it relates to an area like Cranberry, of course it's urban. So those areas got the attention first. And then you look at what's happening now. And of course, Helene happens September 27th, 2024. I'm recording this approximately 10 months later. And I talked to a very highly placed official in Washington, D.C., because I was asking for some help. And Patriot Relief is helping every family we can. Rebuilding Hollers is helping every family they can, but we're very tiny and we don't have a huge amount of resources. But there's big money that's gone into Asheville and Boone. So this highly placed official said, I don't know what y'all are still working on. I thought things were in hand. And I said, well, if you go to the main part of Asheville or the main part of Boone, it does look like things are in hand, but you go just a few minutes out and you start seeing there's a very broad divide. So why does that happen? Friends, I have to say, I think it's just plain old money. And it's not just the density of the city that makes it more palatable to serving. It's that I know the bean counters look at that and say, that's more jobs. There's more property taxes there. There's more sales taxes. There's just more dollars being churned in that economy. So they want to drive the recovery there first. But then I look at the town of Newland, which is population 2,000. Why is their economy less valuable just because it serves fewer people? It's still generational homes. It's still a very vital part of North Carolina's landscape. It just happens to be smaller. Or I look at Yancey County, which is population 18,000. The entire county population is basically one neighborhood or two in Asheville. But the resources that have gone there have been much less. And I don't just mean in terms of dollars. I mean, it's slower to get there. And it's just harder to get anything through the process. So it's the dollars on the big level. But then you have to ask yourself, what is the possible outcome here? And then I look at scenarios where we have a lot of second homes, a lot of retirees, a lot of very nice houses. And of course, people do want to spend out their days in the North Carolina mountains. It's gorgeous. The weather's amazing. It's beautiful. It's relaxing. God created this amazing landscape. Of course, you'd want to move here and live out your days there. But when you move there from another state 5 years ago, and you live in your very nice retirement house in a gated community at the top of the mountain, are you looking down on the people at the bottom of the mountain? Do you wish that those single wides would go away? Part of me feels like that's why the relief response has been so spotty with the people who are on the financial razor's edge. There are people that want them to go away. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, go spend some time with me. I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. Very good people, very hardworking people who are in houses that are paid off, been paid off for years. Maybe they inherited the house from a parent or grandparent, so they never had a mortgage. And to think about that house being gone and now it's got to be replaced, well, the replacement is a challenge in the first place because you have some neighbors that don't want the lesser than houses to be replaced. They'd rather the small, less fancy, less exclusive areas just go away. Is that why the relief response is so uneven? Because there is an attitude amongst the elites that says whoever they are, should tell the rest of us how to live. I do think in small towns, there's a far stronger sense of the pioneer American spirit of we've got our own hardware store, our own restaurants, our own people. We can provide for ourselves. They don't have as many of the big box stores that you see in every city and suburb now. The things that actually make the country less real and less personal, those things are in all the cities and suburbs. You go to the small towns and it's small locally owned businesses that support each other. I think that's something absolutely worth keeping and supporting and bringing back to life, whether it's after disaster or after an economic downturn, whatever it is that challenges our small towns and our small businesses. After this storm, we're trying to figure out how to bring these areas back. Some of us are, but there are others that are in the way. And when you look at those small town numbers, that's a self-generated economy. In fact, it's what the country had all over the place. Go out to the Midwest sometime and you'll see towns that used to thrive on a locally run agricultural industry, but as big ag came in, there was less of a use for the small places that supported small family farms. And so I look at the mountains and I'm thinking, all right, so our small towns are definitely at risk, and the people that are in inherited houses and didn't have a house payment, they're at risk. So let's just say that the relief efforts do replace all the missing houses. Well, now we're going to have to figure out what happens next when it comes to property taxes. Because if you're in a property that was previously valued very inexpensively because it was a 50-year-old trailer that had been inherited, and now that's been replaced with a brand new one, you know what's going to happen to the tax valuation, right? And we have to admit the biggest issue we have with property rights in America right now is that you have to pay this annual fee to own your private property. Is it really yours when you have to pay taxes every single year, or the county can take it away from you? That seems to me to be a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Now, too many of us think of the Fifth Amendment as how you don't answer in court, but really the Fifth Amendment says, nor shall private property be taken. That's your real estate. That's your house. When are we going to see some Fifth Amendment absolutionists start to stand up again? I support the Fifth Amendment. I want to make sure that somebody who's in a house that didn't carry a note to some big faceless Wall Street bank is not run off their land simply because a disaster destroyed their house and now they have a new house that the county thinks is worth more. Y'all, these are very real issues, and they don't just affect Western North Carolina. I can guarantee the same issue has happened in Mississippi and in Florida and in Louisiana, and it has happened everywhere a disaster has hit. So we're going to have to get creative with our solutions. We're going to have to do something about the property tax issues that are out there. Because if I go back to the unevenness of the disaster relief, it's the people most at risk who can't afford the wrong response. The folks who relocated to North Carolina from somewhere else on a beautiful pension and great retirement savings, if their taxes go up a little bit, they're all right. Meanwhile, what happens to the working class? What happens to the person who was perfectly fine before the storm with what they had? They did not need to match up to the Joneses because they were happy and fine. And so if I look at this, I got to be in the middle of the solution. And for me, that means being the voice of the people who don't think they have a voice, because currently our political system does not really listen to those who are on the financial ladder towards the bottom. I won't even say they're at the bottom, because these are working people. They just don't live a fancy life, and that's their own choice. And I celebrate those choices. I love that our real estate all over the mountains is actually a very broad spectrum of affordable and passed down generational properties and historic homes and new houses. I love that it's a patchwork quilt. But I'll just say this: I don't think we need to erase those who make less and live in less to support those who want to come in and take over and never assimilate, but instead make it into something it wasn't in the first place. Maybe a disaster shouldn't be used to remake a place. It should be used to support the community that built it all along. That's just my 2 cents. If you know an answer to this situation, I'd love for you to drop it in the comments or make a little stitch video and give me your 2 cents. But y'all, we got to do something, and we got to do it soon, because otherwise those original American patriots, they're going to be run off of the land they've been on for years. And that's not right.